When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
Blog Talk Radio.
The year, 1888. The place, London's East End. Dead and mutilated bodies are popping up all over, from Stamford to Whitechapel. Jack the Ripper is leaving his mark, and the city's on edge. Yvonne Mason is back with a tale of murder and millinery. The Rhodes Hat Factory is booming while the body count rises. Why now? How are these hats connected? Has the Hatter gone mad? Mad Hatter from Yvonne Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Yvonne Mason, your host, and the show is called Off the Chain. For those of you that, and I say this every show, and I know y'all get tired of it, but I really don't care. Those of you that have been with me since the beginning of time, which my guest and I were just talking about off the air, this show is not even 6 weeks old yet. We started on July the 27th. And between the show itself, the archive show, iTunes, YouTube, and all the podcasts that this thing goes to, we wind up with over 3,000 listeners. I have to tell you, I'm so excited, and I'm excited for my guest because this is a venue that is free, people, free, F-R-E-E. Cost you no dinero, no pesos, no liras, no dollars. It's free. Just call me. You got a platform. If you got a book, if you have artwork, if you have a business, if you have music, it doesn't get any better than this. This is off the chain. Now, I'm not saying that it won't get off the chain because it does. That's why we call it off the chain. But we want to hear from you. We want you to be on our show. We want you to be our guest. We want to help you succeed because, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it is very hard for me to go out and do events anymore because I have chosen to stay home and take care of my disabled husband. And in doing that, in order for me to get out there, I made yet another dream come true, a dream that was in the birthing process for about 5 years. I started this show. Well, in order to be successful, I have to have y'all be successful. And it is important to me to stay out there, just as it is important to all of you to get out there and get known. You cannot brand your product if you don't brand yourself. So tonight's guest, on that note, is an author. She published her first book in 2013, and she's unique. I kind of like this girl a lot for many reasons. One of them is this. She's from Texas, makes her a good Southern girl. She moved to Florida in 2004, which is where I live. And then she married the love of her life in 2005. Now, I took that same path. I moved to Florida in 2006 and married the love of my life in 2007. She's the mother of an amazing little girl. She's a software analyst by trade. She's super geeky. And she loves Star Wars and Star Trek, even the new movies, and she loves getting lost in novels. See why I love this girl already? She enjoys many genres, but her favorites would be the paranormal, fantasy romance, sci-fi romance, murder mystery suspense, and the occasional YA that catches her attention. She dabbled in writing for most of her life, starting with poetry to writing a few short stories, and then in 2007, she wrote her first novel. But she didn't finish it. Shame on her. She says maybe one day she will, but I found out during the course of our conversation she's taken bits and pieces of this first novel and put it in her other wonderful books. So in July of 2013, she decided it was time to take her journey. So she wrote and then she published her first novel. The name of the novel is Fallen. It's a paranormal romance that pushes the edge of what we know about angels and demons. Now, when she's not writing, she's reviewing books by fellow authors, friends, and people that she's not had the pleasure of meeting yet. One of the best things she says that she can say about writing is creating the world the characters live in. I understand that. It's an excuse for her to become temporarily insane and allow the voices in her head to actually talk to her. Mine never shut up. Getting lost in the story and becoming the characters, even for just an hour, is one of the best ways for her to escape normal reality. Welcome, Miss Julie Morgan. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
You are quite welcome. Well, tonight will prove to be so interesting. I'm so excited you're on the show. To have just published your first novel in 2013, and then I'm looking at all these other books that you've gotten out there, from angels to snipers to Southern Root stories to Amlaki series. Lord child, when do you sleep?
Sleep is overrated.
That is so true. It is. We already have a caller. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Hello, this is Yvonne, and who am I speaking with, please?
Huh? I was just asleep. It was raining, and I got soaking wet.
Hello?
Okay. Julie, are you still there?
Yes. Yes, I am.
I think that is one of my stalkers. We have those occasionally.
Okay.
So I just tuned them off. We get those occasionally.
Okay.
Let us continue on your journey. Tell us a little bit of history about what brought you out of Texas to Florida to begin with.
Well, after I graduated high school, I had an opportunity to move to Denver, and I took it. And I lived up there for about 7 years. And I did, my college time up there and graduated. And afterwards, I needed something more. It really just wasn't there for me anymore living in Denver. I felt like I lived what I needed to there, and it was time to move on. And I found work with a company over in Chicago and relocated to Chicago. Stayed there for about 2 years. And in the process of being there is when I met my husband. And
wow.
I traveled back and forth between Chicago and Parsippany, New Jersey, which is about 20 miles west of New York City. You could see the skyline just, from the hotel I stayed in. So I was traveling back and forth. So here I am, a country southern girl that grew up on a farm working in the big city. It was a bit of a culture shock. But I had met my husband while I was living in Chicago, and he lived down here in Florida. And when the time came that the contract I was working on, I was a consultant, when it came to an end, he asked if I wanted to come move to Florida to be closer. Yeah, sure. My job, I can take it anywhere. I'm a software analyst. I can do that anywhere. So in the process of getting ready to move myself, my husband is also in the Army Reserve, and he found out he was getting deployed to Afghanistan. So it went from a slow love story to an epic rush of proportions that I was not prepared for. So we moved me down here to Florida. A second later, we were married. 4 months later, he found out he didn't have to go to Afghanistan and came home. So it was this rush, whirlwind thing that happened, and then suddenly he was home.
Well, thank him for his service, for one
Absolutely,
thing.
Absolutely, I will. He's still in the service as well, so he's still serving.
Well, we appreciate him and for his service, and thank you for your sacrifice, because it is a sacrifice. When we have to send those we love off, what people don't understand is it leaves a big void in our lives.
It really does, and I will be completely honest and claim to be one of the fortunate ones that my husband gets to come home. He's in the service. He does reserve duty, but he gets to come home. Even during his, what I call weekend warrior times, he gets to come home. My brother recently retired from the Army. He was in for his 20 years. And in 20 years, he went on 4 different tours. So he was gone for an entire year every 5 years. He was gone. And that's a lot of strain on a marriage and on a family. So, you know, it's hard. It's very hard. And a lot of times in the stories that we read and the stories that we write, that is what we escape to, just to get out of reality, if just for an hour.
That is true. That is very true. Thank your brother, too, for his service.
Absolutely. Sure, I sure will.
In my research of you and your bios and finding little tidbits, what I am sure a lot of people probably don't know is you rode rodeo in Texas.
I did a lot of stuff in Texas.
Well, tell me about the rodeo in Texas.
I had a brother that did a lot of bareback riding and made an attempt at bull riding. It was a little scary, but made an attempt at bull riding, a lot of shoot dogging, and it was just a lot of fun. You know, it was like one big country family, so to speak. I mean, we all did everything together, and it was a lot of fun. And you know, it was so much fun. And I owned a horse up until I gave birth to my daughter. And she's 9 years old, so I sold him 9 years ago. I sold him 9 years ago. And I rode up until I was probably 5 or 6 months pregnant and sold him to the girl that leased him from me while I was pregnant. So, and she rides him now in the rodeo and does barrel riding and pole bending, all kinds of stuff with him. So, you know, it's definitely something fun to look back on, and I wonder how I survived. Some of it can be scary because you're dealing with wild animals, and sometimes, you know, they don't want to do what you're trying to get them to do, you know, and they just kind of go their own way, and sometimes the sheep will just lay down, and sometimes the bull just want to step on you. So, you know, it's all dependent on the situation and maybe how angry they are.
and what kind of mood they're in.
Exactly.
And they also pick up on our moods. My son and I both had horses, and they would pick up on our moods. If we were in a foul mood or even in a down mood, they knew it.
Oh, absolutely they did. The horse I had, Cooper, he was the love of my life for a long time. And when I lived in Chicago, he was there with me. You know, I had someone take care of him when I'd go to New Jersey, but when I moved down here to Florida, I had him trailered down. You know, the people that trailed with him fell in love with him because he was such a sweet and kind horse. If I'd sit in his stall, he would lay down on the ground and put his head in my lap like a dog. He was so sweet. And when he met my husband for the first time, mind you, there was never any guys ever out of the stable with me. So here's my husband with his arm around me. My horse got mad. It came up and bit him.
Jealousy runs deep.
Yes, and that was the only time that ever happened. It was kind of like a show of ownership. She's my mama, not yours. And then they were friends after that. They were fine, you know.
Your bio also says that you love anything about dancing. Tell me about that.
Dancing. Oh, I love dancing. I've danced since I was a child. You know, if there's a tune, I'd bebop. You know, I'd dance in my room as a child. My parents still tease me about that. I would dance in my room as a child. I'd dance in the hallway. It didn't matter. I would just dance. I was on a dance team at the school, and just dancing all the time. I took ballroom dancing lessons, and I even taught Zumba for a couple of years. And I love dancing and all aspects of dancing and any style of dancing, whether it's doing a tango or doing some street crump, it doesn't matter. I love all forms of dancing.
It says that you are very much a critique for Dancing with the Stars and all the other reality shows.
Yeah, I find myself disagreeing with the judges quite often. I quit watching Dancing with the Stars because, some of the dancers are absolutely amazing, and I don't mean the professional dancers. I'm talking about the celebrities that come on. Some of them do really well. Others, not so much, and the judges, they're trying to help them become better, and they're like, this was the best dance I've ever seen, and I'm sitting there like, are you kidding me? And it was hard for me to watch it. Yeah, it was hard for me to watch it. I'm like, really?
Out of time, out of step, 2 left feet. Yeah, I find myself doing that with prom shows. So,
yeah.
According to your bio too, I just find you so interesting. You started writing at 4.
I was really young. I don't know if I necessarily consider it quote unquote writing. I would write poems and songs and sing them to my grandmother. I was with my granny and papa a lot when I was growing up, and I'd write what I would consider a poem. I would write it, and I would take it to her in the kitchen while she was cleaning up from dinner, and in the little girl's squeaky voice, I would sing it to her, and she'd like, oh, that was so good, and I'm just waiting for her ears to bleed because I know I can't sing to carry 10 in a bucket. So that's what I did. I wrote a lot of stuff like that, and I didn't do a lot of journaling. I never got into the journaling and keeping notes and stuff like that, but I can probably put out a 2-page poem in a matter of minutes. And I did that sometimes, to just get thoughts out that were in my head. And it wasn't until I was probably in my early 20s that I actually started thinking about character-driven stories. That's kind of where that started, was then. And I graduated from poetry to novels.
Well, see, I can't. It takes me forever to knock out a poem because there on any given day there are too many voices running around in my head, and they argue a lot. And I know you probably have that problem too.
Yeah, definitely.
They want to get out, so they argue with each other, and you can't shut them up.
Oh, what's even better is when they argue with you.
I've had that happen. In
That's
fact, the
not
book
what
I
I
was
want
writing.
to do.
Yeah, a book I was writing. I wanted.
Yeah, you make me go over there. I'm going to stop talking to you.
Well, one wouldn't let me write a book the way I wanted to write it, so I had to put it aside because every time I would sit down to write it, it'd say, you're not writing it that way. I'm not going to let you.
Yeah.
And I would get so frustrated with it. So finally I said, okay, fine, you when you write it.
Yeah. I actually had a book that happened to. The entire outline did not go as planned at all.
Yeah. It's aggravating.
It is. It ended up becoming one of my better sellers. So I'm not complaining.
You started in the IT software field right out of high school. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How in the world did you do that?
It was very hard because this is going to sound completely sexist, and I don't mean it to be, but when I started in IT back in the early 90s, it was a man's world. And it was really hard for me to be in that position. And I was harassed a lot, verbally and sexually, and never physically touched in a sense, just words, innuendos and stuff like that. And people, friends joke around time to time, but when it's your boss, it's just not cool. And then to turn around and get terminated for making a formal complaint to HR, that happened. And this is before sexual harassment really became a thing. And I feel so old saying that, but it's the truth. And it was really hard being taken seriously as a young, early 20s, at the time, blonde woman working in IT. It was really hard for me to really make my stand, but I've been here, and I've been here 20 years. I've been doing it. I've worked my way up, and, a lot of that, it makes you grow a really thick skin, You
have to, because, number one, and again, because we are off the chain, we can say this and get away with it. Men in that field, and I understand exactly where you're coming from, men in that field in that time didn't think women were smart enough, for one thing. And if you were blonde, you really weren't smart enough. You were supposed to just be a blonde, and again, this is just words. You were really just supposed to be a blonde bimbo that they could just fool around with and demean you because you had nothing to bring to the table. But for you to be in it for 20 years, you probably outlasted most of them.
I have. I've outlasted a lot of them. And stuff that went over 20 years ago, you would not dare do today. You would not dare. Because not only would you get fired, you could get sued. And
exactly.
It's just, God, I just wish the rules were then the way they are now. It would have been so different. But I wouldn't be where I am now if that's the case.
And think of it this way too. If you had not had that foundation, and it was a foundation, to get yourself a thick skin and to compete in the IT world, believe me, my friend, you would not survive in this publishing world, because it can be a very brutal industry. It's better now, but when I first started, it was extremely brutal.
Yeah.
So, you've come a long way, baby.
There's a lot of things that I've been through in the last 20 years that a lot of people, I don't know they'd be able to handle that and keep going. But growing up, three brothers, in a house of three brothers, being treated as an equal, not being treated as a sister or a girl, being treated as an equal, I think, is what really got me through it. Knowing that I had a voice, that I had that, and I knew how to defend myself and how to stand up for myself, because that's what they did for me. So, it's that's something that I took with me. Did we get along all the time? Hell no. We're brothers and sisters.
Of course not.
But,
I have three brothers, too.
Yeah, when we did, it's, I can pick on her because she's my sister. You touch her, I'll kill you. It's one of those things. So, and it's kind of the same way in the workforce. It's, you develop the friendships in the workplace, and these people become like your extended family because you're there 8 to 10 hours a day. And I still have a day job. I still have a day job. And you become protective of each other. And just stuff that happened 20 years ago does not fly today. Oh, no.
No, it doesn't, not at all. There's been, the lawsuit from Fox News where Roger Ailes, God love him, thought, and that's a Southern slang, that, like, bless their heart. He got away with that for so long, and then when it finally caught up with him, it blew apart everything, all the dirty little secrets.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
I am very, very proud that you stuck to your guns and you made it in an industry where women were not allowed. That was just one of the industries that women were not allowed, or they weren't given credit for being able to handle that industry. And look at you. You not only survived it, honey, you nailed it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now, let's get to some fun things. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is Off the Chain, And as you know, with Off the Chain, anything is possible. Anything may be said. I am your host, Yvonne Mason. My guest tonight is Julie Morgan. She is an author, and we've been discussing her rodeo days and her trip from Texas to Chicago to Florida to getting married to her little girl, to her horses, to her IT profession, which I am very proud she's in that profession, probably more detail than most men I know. And now we're going to talk about, I know what all of y'all have been waiting for, her books, because she is a fairly new author in the indie trade. She didn't publish her first book until 2013. That book, the title of it is called Fallen. Julie, tell me about this book.
So I was at Book Bash in Orlando. I think it was 3 years ago now. I was there with a fellow author. She invited me to come as her VIP guest. I'm like, oh, this would be so much fun, and at the time, these characters are bouncing around in my head. There's a story trying to form. I'm thinking I'm going nuts because they just won't shut up, and I'm like, stop it. So I go to this event, and I sit down and I start talking to her about it. I was like, I need to know what to do. I feel like I've got a story to tell, and I have no idea how to do this. And she said, all you got to do is just sit down and start writing. And that's exactly what I did. I wrote the story probably 3 times, over and over and over. This is
normal.
the first try through. Yeah, this is normal, sir. And I had a couple of beta readers, and I had a couple of editors on it. So Fallen, it's a take on paranormal romance with angels and demons. And it's not just any angels and demons. These are angels and demons in the biblical sense. It is a far from Christian story. It is so not a Christian story. I don't want them to get that confused with using biblical terms here. So, but like Archangel Sliphiel and Archangel Theniel, these, and Archangel Michael and a couple of others, and some of the first 7 demons that fell with Satan into hell. I mean, all of these characters or creatures are mentioned in the first story. And the premise of the story is what happens if you sold your soul for the best in life. What happens? People are always talking about, you sold yourself to the devil. Well, what happens if that were to actually occur? So that's where this story picks up. Lisa, the female in the story, sells her soul without realizing that she's done it to get the best in life. She is the youngest PR representative this firm has ever had, and she's worked her way to the top. How has she done this? Nobody can understand why. Well, the chick sold her soul. She didn't sleep her way to the top. She didn't do any of that. She sold her soul. And when the devil comes calling, that's when the seduction begins. That's when the games begin. And that's really where the story kicks in. It's one of those stories that's a slow burn. You get into the story and you discover who she is. And you go through the first 5 years of what's happened to get her to her point. It's a quick, couple of chapters to get there. But once the seduction begins, it's like, bam, in your face, and it just kicks up and it goes. And the story literally, like you are going through hell with her. And it's brutal. There's some scary / horrific moments that I was told. I didn't realize it was scary when I wrote it, but people have told me they got a little scared. I'm happy about that. That makes me proud.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, this is, what happens when you sell your soul and the devil comes calling. What do? You can't escape it. He has your soul. You can't escape the inevitable. But, you also have a guardian angel. And her guardian angel wanted to protect her. So he became in human form. And with human form comes human emotions. And with human emotions, oh, my God, angels are not allowed to fall in love. So, Sliphiel's human name is Alex, and Alex came after Lisa to save her. And, oh, my God, does he save her. He commits the biggest sacrifice that love could ever have. And it's brutal, it's honest, and it's bloody. But it's beautiful. Yeah. And so, Samuel, Samuel's my demon. He's got a lot of fans.
Of course, the screaming at fans.
I want some more Samuel. I love it.
So it's called The Chronicles of the Fallen, and you have 4 more behind Fallen. Do they have to be read in order? Is it a continuation?
Yes, in this series it does. Book 1 starts the series, and 2, 3, 4 into the short story that's at the end, Rapture. All the stories follow one another. So if you were to pick it up in the middle and try to read it, it may not make much sense. You'd be able to read it, but there's a lot of backstory and history that you would miss out, and some of the things that are in there may not make much sense. So I would definitely suggest reading it in order.
Ladies and gentlemen, the series, the Chronicles of the Fallen series, is Fallen, which is the first book, which is the one we've been discussing. The next one in the series is Redemption. The third is Atonement. The fourth one is Culmination. Then the short story is called Rapture. So when you look up author Julie Morgan and you want these books, read Fallen and then Redemption, then Atonement, then Culmination, and then Rapture, because it's like Julie says, if you pick up the book that's in the middle of the series, you're probably not going to understand what's going on. And just from her talking about Fallen, as soon as I get off the phone, I'm going to go download it. Inquiring minds want to know here.
Well, I got some great news to share on that. Fallen right now is free on all channels. So
well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Pick it up and get started.
Fallen is free, so go down and download it on any of your devices and read it. Let's move down to Southern Roots series.
A fun series to read.
Tell me about them.
So Southern Roots, a lot of it is loosely based on my life growing up in the country. I was driving home. I live in Winter Haven, Florida. I was driving home from my day job, and if you're ever in Polk County, Florida, there's like 86 lakes here. It's like basically all water. There's like 86 lakes here. And I was driving by one of them, and there's like a really, when I say a cliff, I don't mean like something you see like in Seattle, like these huge cliffs that go to the ocean. Hardly. It's just like you jump, splash. Woohoo, it's fun. You know, it's like a small little creek type thing. So I see these kids on the side of the bridge that's, you know, over there by this small little ravine that, you know, they're jumping into, having fun. Well, it reminded me of the cliff jumping that we did in Texas growing up. And again, cliff jumping, nothing huge. There's no cliffs in Texas because it's flat. But there's a couple of little areas we could jump into, like, yeah, cannonball, you know, and stuff like that. So, you know, there's some fun areas like that there. So when I see these kids doing that, it immediately took me back to Texas. And I started thinking about, like, right out of high school, and we'd run over there in our bathing suits and go jump into this water. Me, I did not. I watched. No. I didn't do
not happening.
I did the watching. So watching these kids, it took me back to that. And then I had this sudden story. And mind you, this happened right after I wrote Atonement. I hadn't even written Culmination yet. So all of this was coming into my mind. And Bobby Ray and Lexi, who are the main characters of Southern Roots, came to mind. And they started telling me their story, what they wanted to get told. I had to rip up my voice recorder and like, you know, making all these notes in my voice recorder for what they were telling me because, I mean, it was alive. And I took a break away from Chronicles of the Fallen to write this story because it was so heated in my head. I had to do it right now. It took me probably 20 days to write that story. I mean, it was so fast.
Wow. What about City Lights?
Oh, yeah, City Lights. This series, it's a contemporary romance series. They're all real people. There's no paranormal involved. Southern Roots is the country story with cowboy, you know, and the girl that lives on a farm. The antagonist in the story is a rock star. That's his story is City Lights. So Blaine, who you meet in Southern Roots, he's a recovering drug addict. And he has serious issues. And in City Lights, his story, you take his path of basically his own redemption, trying to better himself. He's got this mega career as a rock star, and if he doesn't clean up his act, he's going to throw it all away. And so the beginning of the story, you find him in rehab, and it's very raw. And I had a reader I sent the prologue to read it, and before I sent it off to my beta readers, because I just needed somebody to read it to tell me if this is real, if this touched her. She called me crying, and I was like, okay, that's all I needed, you know.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, you know. So, you know, and I talked to her for a little bit. I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. Oh my God! But, yeah, so that's the same story. But in the course of his story, the record label he's under, they decide that they want to try to promote a new band. They want to sign somebody. They want to bring some fresh faces on. So they go to House of Blues there. You know, the story takes place in Colorado. They go to the House of Blues and listen to a band that I called Mongrels of Soul. His band is Deep Ember. And he walks in and he sees this woman that he is just absolutely captivated by. So his story is not only proving to himself that he's worthy of love from somebody, but he's also proving to her that he has changed, because she knows exactly who he is. You were playing with Deep Ember and you have a serious drug problem. Yeah, I don't want to be involved with you. So he's, you know, trying to prove to her that he has changed. There's a lot of humor in this story. It's not all, you know, negative Nancy. There's a lot of humor. And you meet other members of the band who get their stories told later in other stories. So that's
Fuel Desire, Driven Hunger, and Paramore.
Right. So Fuel Desire, there's two antagonists that's in Southern Roots. Blaine is one of them. The other one is Abby. You will absolutely hate Abby when you meet her in Southern Roots, purposely. I set it up that way for you to hate her. And at the very end of Southern Roots, she makes a little bit of a change, and you see that, but you're still, you know, you're like, oh, I still hate her. Well, she gets her story in Fuel Desire. She decides, and this is the story I was saying earlier that I had outlined, and the characters decide, nope, we're going to do something different. This is that story. So I have it staged that she's going to leave Texas because she's like, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't want to live this life anymore, because you see only one side of her. You see the bad side of Abby during Southern Roots. Well, in Fuel Desire, you really get to know her, and you understand why she is the way she is. And I take you from hating her to feeling sorry for her to loving her. And I put her on a plane to get out of the country. Well, this redhead and a kilt shows up named Clive. And I called him Clive the Bastard for a long time, because he just manifested in the story as I was writing. I'm just typing away, and then this redhead named Clive came over and said, I'm like, who the hell are you? Seriously, that is what I said to myself. Who the hell are you? I had not planned him. I had not staged him. He just appeared. And I tried ignoring him, and in my head, I can hear him in his Scottish accent. Oi! You listen to me. So,
I understand that. Oh, I so understand that.
And I went with it, and I wrote the story. And the best thing that I can say about Clive is that he wants Abby for who she is, not who she was, but for who she is and who she can be, who she deserves to be, who she could be. That's who he wants, and that's who he helps her find. And he is probably one of the best characters I've ever written. And I feel like I can't take credit for that, because he wasn't somebody I thought of. He just showed up. He just showed up. So, but he was a lot of fun. In Driven Hunger, Matt, Matt is a drummer for Deep Ember. You meet him in City Lights. He brings a lot of humor to the table. He's a fun character. He hooks up with Bobby Ray's cousin, Michaela. You also meet her in book 1. Michaela has come out of an abusive relationship, like a domestic violence type abusive relationship. And her and Matt know each other because, you know, their stories all intertwined. They know each other. So when they see each other again, he invites her to a concert. One thing leads to another. They become friends with benefits. You know, and, you know, that never works out. Feelings get hurt. People get hurt. They don't know what they want. Oh, my God, I'm just immature. I don't know what I want. Yes, I do. I want you, Yeah. So, their story gets told. And there's definitely humor between them. And he's a very dominant type personality. But in order for her to have her strength back and to have her encouragement of herself back, to have that self-control and that self-confidence, he becomes the weaker person in order to build her up, to give her that power. And I think, honestly, it takes a lot in a person to be able to do that, to be able to take a step in order to build somebody else up. And that's what I absolutely adore about Matt. And he has a lot of fans because of that. And then Paramore is Derek's story, and Derek is the lead singer of Mongrels of Soul. And Derek's story is a little bit heartbreaking, but also very touching. He has never formally come out of the closet. He's gay. He is scared to death in doing so that his band will basically go down in flames because of him. He doesn't want to take a chance of wrecking what they have because of his sexual preference. All of his bandmates are like, dude, do it. Just do it. Just come out. Just do it. We all know you're gay. It's all right. We don't care. We love you regardless. And something Penelope, who is Blaine's love interest that you meet in City Lights, tells him, you can't help who you're born to be, and you can't help who you fall in love with. Own it. And with the encouragement of her and with the others, he finally puts what I call his bitch attitude aside. He puts his bitch attitude aside and embraces his inner self and really comes out, like in full glory. And it's great. The story worked out great. And Clive and Abby come back in the story, and there is some laugh out loud moments between all of them because Clive is just fun, So it's a great series all the way around. It's a great series. It touches on a lot of things. The coming home again in Southern roots, drug addiction with City Lights, getting away from Abby's parents are awful. Getting away from abusive parents is her story. Domestic violence that happens in Driven Hunger, and then embracing oneself in Paramore. I mean, there's a lot of emotional issues in every one of these stories. They're all touching in that one.
You took all of the human element and wove it into these 5 stories.
Yes.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. I want to talk a few minutes. We're going to run out of time if we don't get through this, but this is so important that I want to talk about it. Your book, Delta Force, the Special Ops series, because we know that your husband is in service to our country. Did this book come out of your relationship with your husband?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay. Explain this one to me.
So, as I was writing Driven Hunger, Matt's story, as I was writing that story, Logan Saunders, who's the main character in Delta Force, appeared in my head. I knew he was a soldier. I knew he had a story to tell, but I wasn't quite sure what it was yet. So he sat there very patient and waited for me, and wasn't real active, but there's a little spark there. I knew something was going to happen. So as soon as I finished that and I got halfway through writing Paramore, Logan just basically erupted in my head. And I had no idea. I had no clue about Delta Force at all, other than, like, songs and movies and stuff like that I saw. I had no clue about Delta Force at all. But I knew he was going to be a Delta Force operative. I knew that he was going to be in war, and I knew that he was going to have a huge tragedy in his life. I had nothing else to go on other than that. So when I started writing his story, I wanted it, or not me, he wanted it to start in war, a scene of war, to show what his unit is doing. So I wrote this first chapter based on what I thought was happening. I had my husband read it, and he goes, no, it wouldn't happen like that. This is what's going to happen. So he basically helped me rewrite the first chapter to what it is today, and it's very raw. It's war.
Yeah.
And
it is war.
Yeah, Logan goes through a huge tragedy. You know, he loses his wife in a car accident, and then a second later finds out that she's been cheating the whole time. And he just goes from down to worse, you know, like taking of the dog. And his story is gaining that confidence in himself, confidence as well, but really forgiveness of his wife and forgiveness of himself, and starting over and knowing that through tragedy, beautiful things can be inspired. And that's what his therapist that he is ordered to see helps him see. Well, the therapist he starts to have feelings for, and that's a no-go zone. You can't do that. And toward the end, you know, these two, you know, there's a lot of sexual tension between them, a lot of angst, because they both know they can't go there. You know, a very arrogant man, and thinks that, you know, he's got the biggest, you know what, downstairs, and he's, you know, he's like the best of the best of the best, you know, because he's an alpha male. Well, she sets him straight, you know, and it's fun to watch that. There's, you know, the story is very tragic. You have to have tissues reading it, because there's 2 scenes in the story that I will make you cry. I cried writing it and rewriting it and editing it. I cried. And reading it, you'll definitely feel his emotion, because it's raw in that sense. But you meet other characters that bring out the humor that comes with the military. You know, like one of the characters' name is Brody, who is in Sniper, in the second book, is his story. Brody is a very aggressive character, but very fun and very loving. And in your face, you know, one of those guys. And one of the funnest scenes I think I wrote in Delta Force was what I call the bitch scene. And Logan is back, you know, from overseas. He's buried his wife, found out she's cheated. He's lost control of himself, and now he has a court-ordered therapist. It's like, great, I'm basically here, so I don't lose everything I have. So there's a mission training position going on, and he's like, what's going on today, boys? And Brody's all, well, we're flying in the Black Hawk helicopter today, and we need somebody to play bitch. Are you game? He goes, I am nobody's bitch. Well, you are fresh meat on the field, and I call it like I see it. Next scene, he is tied up and bound on the bottom of the Black Hawk helicopter, pissed the hell off. So, you know, there's some humor written into the story, but it's very real. You know, it's very real.
Let's quickly go through the Deadly Alchemy series.
The Deadly Alchemy? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. See, I
so
can't talk. I can't talk this late at night, so you have to help me out here.
I sure will. Okay, so Deadly Alchemy is a paranormal romance that is what I would call gothic fiction, and it has some steampunk elements. So if you're not quite sure what gothic fiction is, think of like a Victorian era with the corsets and the bustles, you know, and the top hats and the frilly hair with the drop curls or the pin curls and stuff like that. So that's basically your Victorian era. And throw in some mechanical parts from that, like a mechanical arm or maybe some gadgets that are a little futuristic before their time. There you have your steampunk. So that's basically the setting of the story. And the paranormal part of it is vampires and werewolves. So Amelia Ramos, who is a long descendant of the very first alchemist, Zemos, she has created the cure for vampirism. And the vampires have found out about it, and they want it. But she's not really quite sure why they want it. Well, the werewolves find out that she has created said serum, and they can't let her give it to them. So there's this war brewing, you know, between vampires and werewolves because they're arch enemies. They hate each other, you know, all, you know, the traditional sense. Well, you come to find out that the reason that they are even in existence is the very first alchemist is who created the very first vampire. And and this is in my story. This isn't how it happened. This is just in my story. So he created the very first vampire. And I don't want to say who it is because it's a very key part in the story. And when you read it, you're like, oh, yeah, I can totally see that, you know, with this character. So this character basically got driven mad. And he starts creating vampires all over the world, and it starts getting out of control. Well, a coven of witches are having enough of that, So they decided they're going to create their own monster, hence the first werewolf. They take a huge alpha male and a huge alpha wolf by magic, put them together, and bam, you have your first werewolf. So the werewolves were created in order to control the population of the vampires. If the vampires do not exist, there is no reason for the werewolves to exist. So hence comes the key part of the story, which is also the tagline of the story: how do you choose who lives and who dies? So it takes you down into a deep rabbit hole of sorts. You know, Amelia finds herself in a world that she never knew even existed. They know vampires, but she had no idea that they were not the only monsters in the world. So when she finds out that there's werewolves, you know, there's a totally different game at play now. And that's Deadly Alchemy. There's a bridge story between the two of them called After Midnight, and it's just a bridge story between book 1 and book 2. It's free on all channels. It's just a short story. And then Fatal Intentions is book 2, and it picks up where Deadly Alchemy left off. And you have a couple of characters that you met in the first book, new characters that come into this one, and new magic as well. So not only do you have vampires and werewolves, now you also have necromancy, which are, you know, the witchcraft that try to control the dead. And in this case, the vampires. So,
ladies and gentlemen, this is Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason. My guest tonight is the wonderful, mesmerizing Julie Morgan, and she has just blown me away with all of her wonderful, wonderful books. I'm telling you, I could sit and listen to this girl all night long because I know I'm going to go get them as soon as I get off from here. So we have to hurry up and get through so I can go get books. But her books, sorry, Julie, I love you, honey, but we got to go. But her books are romance, they're mystery, they're military, they're paranormal, they're demons and angels. And like me, she can't shut the voices up, so this is what happens. Julie, we have about 7 minutes left. First of all, tell our listening audience where you can be found.
Okay. There's one other story I really want to throw in there really quickly we didn't get a chance to talk about. My recent release I co-wrote with the fabulous Mary and Maria called Dragon Master, and it's a science fiction fantasy type story, fairly new. So definitely give it a shot, give it a read.
There you go, Dragon Master.
Dragon Master.
Go ahead, sweetheart.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so where readers can find me, one of two places typically, either on Facebook, can find me. I'm on Twitter, but I also have a webpage. It's juliemorganbooks.com.
Now, in 2 minutes, tell our listeners if they have a dream. What would you tell someone if they said, I have a dream? How would you tell them how to make it real?
Embrace it. Chase after it. Don't let it go. And don't surround yourself with people that tell you that you can't do it and that you shouldn't do it and that, you know, why would you do that? Don't surround yourself with people like that. Don't surround yourself with negativity. If there is something that is pulling at you, if there is something that is pulling your string, go chase after it. Find out where it's pulling from. Find out what's tugging you. Go to the end of that cord and find out what it is, because you have no idea what might be on the other side of that door that could absolutely change your life. And that is the best advice I can give you. Go chase that dream. Go make it happen. It might take you 5 minutes. It might take you 5 years, but go do it.
Or it might take you 30 years, as it took me and probably several more people out there. But, ladies and gentlemen, the reason that I ask all of my guests when they visit to give their advice and their words of wisdom is because, like me, they've all taken this journey. We've probably all been rejected more than once. We've probably all wanted to toss our dreams in the garbage and move on with a boring and rather dull life. But in mine and Julie's cases, the voices won't let us, right, Julie?
You know it.
They won't shut up. And
right.
what we are saying is, in this life, number one, none of us get out alive. Number two, at the end of your days, and you're taking your last breath, and you're saying, I shoulda, I woulda, and I coulda, too late. Because the only thing that you're going to be remembered for is what you did not do, not what you did. If you have a dream, if you want to start a business, I don't care if it's garbage collector. If you want to start a business, if you want to write a book, if you want to write a song, if you want to play an instrument, if you want to paint, if you want to draw, whatever that business is, start right now.
Do it.
Don't wait till tomorrow. Do it today. Because today is all that we have. And in the end, you can say, I did it. I made it happen. And I had, as Julie says, I had positive people around me that encouraged me, that supported me, that even probably maybe pushed me when I didn't want to be pushed. Correct, Julie?
You know it.
we just want to toss it. We're done. We don't want to do it anymore. But we have all these people around us. God loved my husband, and I mean that with everything in my fiber, because he has supported me. I started my first book when I was in my 20s. I am 65 years old. I got rejected so many times I wanted to quit. I published my first book in 2007 after I married my husband. 2007. I have been on national television. I have a radio show. I have published in just about every genre out there except romance. Don't do romance. But the thing is, you're never too old to live your dream. And when someone tells, and I went to college at 52 years old and got a degree in criminal justice and became a bounty hunter, which was another dream. In my 50s, I became a bounty hunter. I'm 4'11", Julie. And I'm talking about the IT being a hard field to get into. I'm a female doing a bounty hunter's job. So that's why I have so much respect for you, because we did it in spite of, or because of our tenacity. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm telling you. You can do it. The question you have to ask yourself is, how bad do you want it? How important is this journey that you want to take? If you eat, sleep, think, dream, have voices in your head that won't shut up, then put that one foot in front of the other and take that journey. Because if you don't, you were the loser. And you were the only one that... That's right. Your story will, as Julie says, your story will never be told. And it can never be anyone else's story. It's your story. And you are the only one that can tell it. I am always looking for guests. Always, always, always. Whether you have a platform, if you have a platform, I want to hear it. Even if it's one I don't agree with, I want to hear it. If you're a musician, or you're just starting out, or you're a new author, or you're a new artist, or you have something you want to get off your chest, contact me. Find me on Facebook. You can email me at yvonnemason84@yahoo.com, and I'll get you on the show. And, Julie, I want to say thank you, my friend, for honoring me with being my guest tonight. And
the honor is mine. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And I'm going to bring you back after Christmas because we have more shows more books to talk about.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
We have more books. Share the show. Get people to come to me. Ladies and gentlemen, love, laugh, be happy, live. Take your journey. My guest on Tuesday night is author and rocket scientist is Stephanie Osborne. We will be on at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And remember, this show is always, always, always off the chain. We are not stodgy. We are not straight-laced. And we know how to have fun. So join us on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock with Stephanie Osborne, and we are off the chain, and this is Yvonne Mason saying good night. Julie, thank you, my dear, so, so much. We are now off the air, but they can hear us in archives when they bring this show up. But I did want to say thank you, and I feel like I've known you all of my life.
This was a great interview. We had so much fun. Thank you so much.
We did, and
there's still so much we hadn't talked about.
I know. We've got more to talk about. That's why you got to come back in January or February. I want to rebook you because that'll be getting close to the event, and we promote the event and and all of this stuff we didn't get to. An hour is really not enough. We could have probably talked for 2 hours.
Probably, and I'm a huge supporter of autism research because my daughter's autistic, and every one of my books in the back of the book about the author, I always put something there, and that's a conversation that could take an hour to talk about just itself. The journey that we took it down.
When I bring you back, because see, my brother, the brother that I wrote about, that was my first book, he is retarded. And he was born at a time when there were no resources. He was born in 1952. But his journey is one of tenacity. You talk about stubborn and tenacious. His story would not shut up in my head. And when I told him that I was going to write his story, my mother said, Stanley, how do you feel about this? And he said, I like it because now people will know how I feel.
Right.
So
when someday I will do this for my daughter, I'm just not in the mindset to do it yet, but someday it'll happen.
But when I bring you back, when I bring you back, we'll do a 2-hour show. The first hour will be on autism, if you're up to it, and your journey with your daughter. And we'll talk about, then the second hour we'll talk about all your books and everything else that we didn't get into tonight. But I agree, autism needs to be on the show, and you would be a great platform for it.
Okay, that would be great. The more that we talk about it, the more resources, the more research, the more people know and become aware.
Right, and people have a misnomer about people that are challenged, because when I give speeches and I talk about my brother, I look at him and I say, guess what? Every one of us in this room are challenged. I live in a right-handed world. I'm left-handed. When I get
my daughter's
tired,
left-handed.
See, that means she's a genius. You know that. We think with the right side of our brain.
I've heard many things about left-handed people like that. Yeah, I've heard many things.
And just because she's got that label doesn't mean she's stupid, and this is what people don't understand about autistic children and adults. They're highly intelligent.
Yes.
They're amazingly intelligent.
And what I detest the most is hearing, wow, she doesn't even look autistic. Well, what the hell does autistic look like? And I've said that.
Does she need a third eye or a horn, or what does she need?
If you watch her long enough, you'll see it. Her arms get to stibbing and the little syncrasies type things that she does. You'll see it. But, just walking past her on the street, seeing her in the store, watch her talk to people, you wouldn't know. But that's with a lot of research that we've done. That's been a lot of help that we've done. A lot of work with her doctor, a lot of work with her schools. That's been a lot of intervention that we've done, thinking that we've had to do for her, advocating for her that we've done. She wouldn't be where she is now if we just left it be. So,
exactly.
She doesn't look autistic. What does autism look like? Autism looks like your next door neighbor. It looks like your next door neighbor. Nobody knows.
I don't look left-handed either, but I am.
I know. I don't know. I don't look crazy, but I got voices in my head.
Oh, Lord help us. Yeah, the next show's going to be fun, Julie.
Yeah, that'll definitely be fun.
Next, because, see, you and I can, I don't want to say make fun. That's not the word I'm looking for, but we can find humor because we both have our own stories to tell about the people in our life that are probably more normal than we are.
Yeah, yeah. And it's something that one of my very good friends pointed out to me, and this has always stuck with me, is the diagnosis has not changed her. She has not changed at all. Just perception of the world around her has changed.
Yep.
She's not changed. She's still the same little girl. She's still your daughter. It's just the perception around the world now has changed. And that has always stuck with me, you know.
What is normal for the spider? You know the old saying, what is normal for the spider is chaos for the fly.
Yeah.
Her world, in her world, it's normal. She's in her world, she's normal. It's the rest of us that are chaotic.
Oh, my God. I have said that to so many people before when people are like, oh, my God, I love your accent. I'm like, I don't have an accent. All y'all have got the accent. You just totally made me think of that. You know, in a world where people talk Southern, you talk gibberish.
Or when they're talking 90 miles an hour and you've got this. I'm from Georgia. I am from the deep South. So when I'm listening to somebody from New Jersey or New York or one of those northern states that they talk so fast, my brain's on meltdown because it doesn't run that fast.
I know, and what's so funny is I know a girl that's from New York, and she had said something to me one day that was just so left field, and I said, oh, honey, bless your heart. She goes, you just told me to fuck off, didn't you? You just told me to fuck off. You know, and I just laughed, and I said, you know what it means?
That is too funny. I love it.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have fun the next show. I see it coming. Bless their heart.
Yeah. Bless your little heart.
It can be an insult or a compliment, depending on the conversation and the context.
I know. And that's what I love about it. I don't know, you know, and my husband even tried the other day saying something to me like, oh, honey, don't get your little, how did you say it? You don't have to get your little head too worked up over that. And I was like, oh, no, you didn't.
He doesn't do Southern well.
Which is funny because he was born and raised here in Florida. But, you know, I got to tell you the story before we get off the phone. When I first met my husband, I was, you know, like I said, living in Chicago. He was here. And I'd gone home to Texas for a funeral when my uncle passed away. And we were, rather than mourning the death, we were celebrating the death, you know, telling stories, having some drinks at a bonfire, just really enjoying the evening. So one of my cousins, bless his heart, comes up and says, so, Julie, tell us about this boy you're dating. Not just this man, but this boy you're dating. And I said, well, he's from Florida. And he goes, well, you know, anything south, or how do you say it? Anything north of Dallas is Yankee. Anything north of Dallas is Yankee. And I said, okay. You do realize that Florida is below Texas on the state map. And he goes, well, then he's a Southern Yankee. I said, a Southern Yankee? Doesn't that make him like some kind of oxymoron or something? And he goes, did you just call me some sort of moron? And I said, oh, dear Lord. My dad goes, baby girl, let it go. Don't you say nothing. Let it go. I said, but Daddy, he just asked if I called him a moron. He said, let it go. So, I mean, here we are 14 years later, and my husband and I still laugh about that story. Did you just call me some sort of moron? Oh, hell yes, I did.
I love
Bless
it.
your heart.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have fun the next show. I see it coming.
I mean, we're going to have fun in Cocoa Beach.
Yes, we are. Bless their hearts.
Oh.
Well, sweetheart, let me get off of here and end this show. Now, you know that all of this conversation is going to be, people will hear it in the archives. But that's okay. Yes. But that's okay because, see, what we have basically done is we've advertised for the next time you're going to be on my show.
Oh, that's right. And they're all going to go, oh, my gosh, what the fuck?
They're going to be saying, when you going to have that girl, that Julie girl back on your show?
Oh, my God. Oh, dear Lord. Okay.
So let me get off from here, get this sucker up in archives and start loading it up, and I'll send you the links, and then you and your husband can just fall down laughing about listening to it.
All right. Well, you got it, and I'll follow up with you soon to get us on the next date.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can seem intense. Like breakup R&B intense.
I thought you said you loved the sweater that I got you. If you didn't, you could have told me.
Geico makes it easy. Just go to Geico.com anytime to update or check your policy without all the extra drama.
I even had a gift receipt.
Fashion Emergency Hotline.
Help! I got rid of all my clothes.
Breathe and explain.
During Fashion Week, everyone looked fantastic, so I decided I needed a new wardrobe.
Well, strut to Old Navy.
Old Navy?
Yes, they have gorgeous floral tops and super on-trend pixie pants to turn your sidewalk into a catwalk. And right now, pixie pants are just $25.
$25?
Yep. Right now, pants and tops at Old Navy are 30 to 50% off.
30 to 50% off? Amazing. Thank you.
Don't thank me. Thank Old Navy. Valid 9/15 to 9/23. Excludes denim and active pants.